Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Too Faced Born This Way foundation. I'll give you all the details on the foundation. You can watch me apply it, and it'll be my first impressions of the foundation as well as a wear test. I'll check in with you throughout the day to see how it's looking, and then at the end I'll give you some final thoughts and my full review on this foundation. So if you want to see my honest opinion on this Too Faced foundation, please keep watching. To start off, I wanted to read you guys some of the details of this foundation that are on the Sephora website, which is where I bought it. And this foundation is $39, and it is full to medium coverage for all skin types, and the finish is radiant. And it says it's an oil-free, medium to full coverage, natural-looking, radiant foundation. So I'm really excited to try this. I love medium to full coverage foundations. That's kind of my jam. If I'm gonna wear a foundation, I want it to kind of cover everything, or else what's the point? So instead of buying the foundation this time, which I've done in the past, and then if I don't like it, I just returned it, I just realized I'll just get a sample for the video, and then if I really like it, I'll purchase it, because I've had my eye on this foundation for a while, and after seeing so many people rave about it, I've really been wanting to purchase it. But I didn't want to jump right in, so I had a couple samples made at Sephora, and this is what happened. I was there like right before they were closing, and they were trying to rush me out of the store, and the sales girl was like, "Oh, can I help you with anything? Let's get you in line." And I said, "Oh, I want samples of this foundation." And she's like, "Oh, I'll make you one." I was like, "What shade do you think I am?" She's like, "Oh, don't worry about it." And she gave me the shades Pearl and Almond, which I think are a little too dark for me, but Pearl is a little bit lighter and more pinky, and Almond is a little bit darker and more yellowy. So I think I'm going to try Pearl just because it's lighter, even though I don't really like those pinkier, rosier undertones in my foundation. But this sample is also more full than the other one, so we're going to go with this one to try it out. And I don't have any primer on, just my moisturizer. I like to test foundations that way so I can really see their wear time and have it not be affected by a primer. And I'm going to apply it with my damp beauty blender, which is how I always apply my foundation. So I really want to get like a fair test of this. So let's go right in with this. I'm gonna try to just pick it up out of this little sample pot. I guess I got that much. I tried to get some out of there, and we'll start applying it. So far, this color actually looks really, really nice, and the coverage is definitely medium to full. I'm getting definitely a full coverage out of this with just as much as I had on my beauty blender there. I think this is gonna cover the whole face very easily. I've pretty much finished blending the foundation in, and I really like the coverage of it. This is definitely I would say, full coverage foundation. I think if you use just a little bit, you could get a medium coverage out of it, but the amount that I used was definitely full coverage. The color match I think is also okay. Hopefully it looks okay on the camera. It's a little more rosier than I would prefer, but not bad. And it's definitely a radiant finish like it says. This is not like drying down matte. It's just staying really like dewy and radiant, which scares me a little bit because I'm oily, so I don't want it to get super greasy throughout the day, but it looks okay. The only thing I'm concerned about is around the nose here. It seems to be like kind of clinging and separating around some of my larger pores and not really covering those that great. But other than that area, I think it really looks beautiful on the entire rest of the face. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of my makeup and then be right back. I finished up the rest of my makeup, and so far this foundation's looking beautiful. It always looks perfect right after you finish applying your foundation, but I'll just quickly mention that I set my entire face with my MAC Mineralize Skinfinish in Light Plus. This is my go-to everyday powder, so that's why I used it, because I test all foundations with this because I'm just really used to this powder, and I know how it will or won't affect the foundation. So far it looks really beautiful. It definitely has a like radiant finish. It's not matte at all. I would say it's more radiant than natural. It's a little dewier than I typically go for, which is making me a little nervous because I'm oily, like I said, but hopefully it holds up throughout the day and just maintains this level of high coverage and radiance, and it will look beautiful. So I'm gonna check in with you a couple more times throughout the day and let you know how it's wearing. Hey guys, it's now 11:45 and I applied my makeup at about 8:15 this morning, so it's been about three and a half hours since I finished my makeup, and it actually looks better now, I think, than it did when I finished my makeup. I'm not sure how it's gonna look in the camera. Maybe it looks greasier, but in person it actually looks like it's dried a little bit more matte than it initially was. It definitely looked better after setting powder, but like when the foundation was just on raw before I set it, it definitely looked a lot like greasier than this. So I feel like it's getting more matte throughout the day, which is a little weird because it's pretty warm and I'm in my warm car and my foundation is still holding up great. So at this point in the day, it's looking good, but I'm not sure if it's gonna get even greasier later on in the day. I'll check in again and let you guys know. It's now 5:45, so it's been about like 9.5 hours or something since I've applied this foundation, and it's definitely looking very greasy. In the earlier clip when I checked in with you guys before, my skin also looked really greasy when I was in the car, but in person it actually looked really matte. Like I was looking in the mirror and I was very happy with how it was holding up. And I also think that it looks okay right now. Like I'm not like horrified, but it is really greasy. So I'm just gonna try to touch up quickly just by dabbing with my beauty blender. This is how I tend to touch up my foundation because it was really starting to separate a lot, like on my nose in particular. So I'm just going to dab this in the oily areas. And just doing that makes it look a lot more wearable and more presentable. I was definitely looking like a grease ball before, so I'm kind of comfortable to go out again like this. I'm gonna head to dinner soon, and it doesn't look horrific, but I'm definitely not impressed with the long wear of this foundation. I think it really, you can't get more of an 8-hour wear out of this. I think if I had a mattifying primer, it might have lasted longer, or maybe a different setting powder, but that's my favorite setting powder. So I was kind of disappointed in how greasy it looks, but overall the coverage is really nice and I don't hate it. All right, it's now 8 p.m. and time for my final check-in of the day. So it's been about 12 hours since I applied this foundation. And overall, I think it's okay. I think the full coverage of this is really great. I think you could build it up and get super full coverage if you have like, say, a lot of blemishes or a lot of scarring that you're trying to cover. But for me personally, I felt that it really kind of clung to a lot of pores and exaggerated the size of my pores. By the end of the day, especially around my nose where it was looking kind of a little questionable right when I applied it, it still looks a little questionable, although it's not awful. It did hold up pretty well. I don't hate it. I would probably wear it again. I just don't know if I would necessarily run out and buy it right away for $40. I think the finish, if you have dry skin, is really nice, or maybe not dry skin, if you have normal skin, is really nice because it gives you that very radiant kind of glowy finish. But for my oily skin, it's just a little bit too oily and makes me look a little bit too greasy. So I was impressed with it earlier on in the day, but like I said again, I think it's really kind of made all my pores look a little larger than they actually are. I'm trying to zoom in and get closer to the light. Hopefully you guys can see like the effect that I'm talking about. So overall, I didn't hate it. I just didn't love it. I'm not sure it's worth $40. There's some other full coverage foundations that I like a lot more. For example, I think the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea foundation, which I've been loving lately, is a little bit nicer and makes the skin look a little bit more like blurred than this one. I also really like the Smashbox Studio Skin foundation. I think that one's another good hydrating and can be built up to a full coverage foundation. So my final thoughts are, I think I need to test this out a little bit more, maybe try it with a matte primer and maybe even set it with a different powder, and maybe try it on a like less warm day where I won't be sweating quite as much. But overall, I think that this is going to be great if you have normal skin. If you have slightly oily skin, I think it might be a little dangerous and you might want to stay clear. And that's it for this review of the Too Faced Born This Way foundation. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video and seeing my review of this foundation. Even though this video was probably a little late to the game, people have been talking about and loving this foundation for a long time. But hopefully you enjoyed seeing how it wore on my oily combination skin and seeing how it looked throughout the day. As always, all the products that I mentioned will be listed in the description box down below. And I also upload 2 days a week on Monday and Thursday, so please subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss my next video. I would love for you guys to watch it, and thank you so much for watching.